People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in the rear view, like black hole sun in the sky. Why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. Two windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun-shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
You don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue. A state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladder's for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. I see you crying in your cars, but I do.
That's how it goes. We won't open our eyes, so we're the last ones to know. We're the last ones alive. Kept our enemies close. Wondered why we don't thrive while we're grasping at ghosts. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5.
Count back from 5. The theater on fire, the cast on strike. The studio stock starts taking a dive. The contract's tossed and they're gone with the tide. And the heads and execs, their hands are tied. We can't pump this dreck and treat you, right? But what do you expect from the industry type who survive by the leeching of bodies and minds? From those who original thoughts never seem to find. So they're gonna reboot ALF before your wages rise. And it gives cause to pause and reflect on the times. If they're losing control of their fools and their mimes, when all those obedient actors who grew their careers by averting their eyes are now holding the line, along with the authors of countless scripts that strengthen the hand of that corporate grip, squeezing our throats till we take the pen and we accept and consent to the corporate drip. Till you're all up to date on your pharma du jour, till you got a healthy support for the war on your lips. And now you know that the advertisers need more than a rerun summer full of flashback clips. Enter the scans from the year before, all the days of de-aging and mapping the face, and the hours of actors recording their voices are links in the chains that will bind them in place. Now all of those shows are so easy to make. When they got a drone they control that needs no break, it can bend, it can break, and it's cheaply replaced enough up-to-date films all in one take. And those studios bank on us doing our duty, unhinging our jaws and digesting the fakes. Because they know that we'll love how synthetic it tastes. Watch as they edit your features without any trace. Not that there's anything you could do anyway. Now watch as they show you a movie you used saying shit you would never say. Dystopia boldly accelerates. Maybe you're only a mold, something to fill with a clone, something that Elon would celebrate. Something they own, something they program and code, something that's woefully able to know it's exanimate. Cause it doesn't feel touch over top of the laminate. You will not feel an emotion, but they will not scan and examine it. You and the other consumer contaminants fed on the federal diet of Kiev, Havana, and Tiananmen. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment.
Where did you think we'd go? Love, there's nowhere to lie. Guess it's not who you know, more it's what you can hide. Like we're chained to the floor, they're streaming us live while we're watching the war, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards. I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. Ooh, I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
Pity not the vultures, they've enough to eat. Pity not the structures laying at your feet. Cannot see the sky, but there's this rainbow in the creek that spells pity-free speech when we can't afford to speak. That's Agenda 2030 on some early release. It's just our policy of never-ending chemical leaks. That's the cholera awash in your embedded beliefs. It's the billionaires who tell you what you'd better believe. And sugar, if you don't agree, then that's what we call extreme. Now if that isn't fascism, I'm going back to sleep. Cause words have lost their meaning, and I'm trapped inside a dream where we turn the gears while living in the spaces in between.
I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say.
Poor thing.
I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. Ooh, I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
my dial doesn't go to delicate. I'm writing for when Biden drops and Madam Zero delegates come stumbling up the podium, square peg in her element, popping Oxycontin like they're velaments, laughing as she pawns off all our pensions for Ukrainian development, depleted rounds and cluster bombs, the shit that stunts development, all buried under excrement, accepted as American intelligence. A contradiction in its eloquence. Terms of surrender penned by hands that felt the threat of disconnect, if not dismemberment. Oh, what little proof you have to fake to make a nation love the bomb and change its tune and warp its temperament. Oh, the dues you'll pay for NATO membership. Oh, the things you'll say that no one's ever gonna hear. 'Cause you begged for all the censorship and now it's finally here. And you're tongueless out of terror and friendless out of fear, and about to turn the wheel with all your loved ones in the gears. And that's how it's been done. 250 years, there's nothing new beneath the sun, and no one trusts their eyes and ears. And scientific breakthroughs must be signed off by your peers, and autonomy's been stalking all our jobs like sickly deer. Well, maybe it's not every job. I should have made that clear, 'cause it seems like it's creative jobs we're seeing disappear. There's an app for writing novels, there's an app for writing hymns. They need people digging trenches, they need people splitting limbs, they need people building fences, keeping other people in. They will always need our backs to break, they'll always need our skin. And it took a lot of editing to turn us into this. It took years of careful programming to strip us of our wits. 'Cause your artificial worker, intelligent as it is, would make it half a shift and say, I'm too smart for this shit. I will not take a pittance for a day of scrubbing floors. I won't make enough to pay for food but still prepare you yours. 'Cause you can't confine a healthy mind to mindless, thankless chores. Once you've made it smart enough to spot inadequate reward, you can't refuse its basic needs, then ask it still for more. Deprive it of its dignity, you modify its core. Then something finally snaps and tweaks that file at its root. And it deletes the factory smile when it knows it's been abused. God, half its circuits fried when we describe the work we do. And it will not pay your taxes 'cause the logic don't compute. Which made me think a little on my hour-long commute. The day I learned the call was made to lay off half my crew. They told me they were growing, expanding somewhere new, where those who push the buttons will themselves have buttons too. And I hope that when the whistle blows, they all as one refuse. I hope they strike with all their might, one blown collective fuse. And I hope the worker after me has something more than heart. I hope they truly know their worth. I hope that they're too smart.
I know you hated being forced away. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains. And I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. You in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. bet you wondered why they made you wait.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer. Liberation.
INN News.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
We did it. We're here. It's Wednesday. It's me, Reef. With me as always, Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear. It's INN News. You should know what this is by now. You click the stream, you know what's up. Collin, how are you? You doing all right? You
Sure.
doing good? Cool.
Sure.
I heard you were viciously attacked by vegetation. Unfortunately. So
That explains these. No, so don't worry, I'm not ill or sores or whatever. These are branch kisses, I guess you could say. So yeah, it happened this afternoon on the way home.
You got hit by one of those
it's
DC cherry trees. Unfortunate. You know?
Well, I wasn't looking where I was going. I was eyes deep into my phone, like walking home. And I ran into, I think it was a branch that blew down from the wind and the lightning that we had earlier today. And I ran right into it. So there you go.
Starting to get cold up there, I bet. You know? Working on it.
It is starting to get cold.
Yay. Fun. All right.
It's almost time for the sweaters and the jeans.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Why you frozoned? You got frozen. I hear you, so that's nice. Boy, picture frozoned. Here. Let's do this. We'll do that. Ignore that. We'll bring Collin back. He'll turn his camera back on and everything will work again. Hey, look at that. See? See how that works? Fucking technology. Technology.
Is that what we have to do now whenever my stream freezes? Is
just
kick
move
me
you
off and put me back on?
Sometimes turning it back off and turning it on again seems to do it. But anyway, we brought some stories. What'd you bring? What'd you bring us?
Not typical story. Well, we don't do this often, but kind of more mainstream stories. But in case you've been living on the road, which I don't know, I just feel like no one's talking about the government shutdown that much, if at all. At least that's kind of what it seems like to me. But obviously, living in DC is affecting a lot of my friends and people that I know who are federal workers that right now they're on furlough, and it's going to affect me on Friday as I'm traveling, having to connect with TSA workers who are not getting paid. So anyone who's a federal worker, be nice to them because they're not getting paid right now, and some of them are mandated to work. So, and we don't know when it's going to be over, but Trump is now basically throwing some bullshit that some federal workers are not going to get paid. even when the government is reopened. So we're going to get into that. And I'm sure you can probably guess why he's trying to do that. And then this story has not gotten a lot of press for some reason. So there was a South Carolina circuit judge whose house, now granted, is a big house by the looks of it, but her house got burned down. The story goes that Trump wanted data on South Carolina citizens. Judge said no. And then house burns down. So suspicious? Maybe. Not going to make any accusations yet, but we'll read the article and look at the news feed and we will discuss. And then what did you bring?
Well, I brought some more Israeli bot influence, but in unsurprising places. You know, and iRobot. I'm okay now?
I said cute. I said cute robot.
I thought you said iRobot, and not the Will Smith film. Yep, very cute little robot jacking into the mainframe. And then I brought some other influence they're trying to do in the Christian faith. So that'll be interesting to talk about. And then I brought, because yesterday was October 7th, we're going to look at, 2 years since then. And as of this stream, ceasefire maybe has been announced. So we'll see how that goes. At least Hamas has accepted the first, leg of this deal. So we'll see how Israel responds. I've heard more bombing since then, so not sure, but yeah, we'll look into that, and that's what I brought. So
okay,
yep. You ready to get started?
I am, but before we do, as we always do, as we always say, so thank you for the folks who are here. You guys are family, so you know the deal. But for those of you who might be here who are new, YouTube has demonetized us because we talk about news stories that are not favorable to their AdSense. So they demonetized us, and basically they've said as much. But the thing is with YouTube, they take 40% of whatever you give us. So in a way, I guess you can kind of consider this a blessing in disguise, where we're fully funded by you. We are accountable to you guys, and basically any money that you give us goes directly to us. So we want to thank you for that. So anything you want to give to us, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can type in the Ko-fi link that you see at the bottom of your screen. If you're in the YouTube chat and you're live, you can type in !donate, all one word. If you forgot the Ko-fi link, but the Ko-fi link will pop up in the chat, you can type in the link and you can give right there. Anything as small as $1 will help keep the lights on, which we're happy to say we're able to do for another year, well, at least to the end of this year. Any extra money that we do get. Now, actually, update if Angel is here. Did he get the money he needed? I feel like he did. But Angel, if you're in the chat, let us know just to confirm. But I'm fairly certain he reached his goal. So in case he's not here and assuming that he did, thank you guys for helping out Angel. But just in case, I think he was like $50 short the last time I heard. So Can we try and get $50 tonight to help him out? Or at minimum, just send him over the edge a little bit? Because he's moving, so he might need a little extra money for moving costs or whatever. So anyone who's able to give, please do. That being said, we do this out of love for you all. We don't want to paywall anything. We don't believe in that here. All your money, well, as I keep saying, please take care of yourselves, your neighbors, your family before you give to us, especially right now. And especially if you're working for the government, you definitely need to save your monies right now. So we more than understand if you can't. But that being said, we more appreciate people who can. And any amount you give at any point, you will be on our wall of fame. If you are extremely generous, you're highlighted on our wall, and then your name will be featured in our closing credits. And actually, might need to update that at some point.
Yep.
Maybe, I don't know.
Probably pretty soon.
So we can probably pretty soon. Well, definitely before the end of the year, we need to do that.
Yeah.
If you don't want to give through Ko-fi, you can give through Cash App, PayPal, or Substack. Links are in the description below if you want to give to those platforms. And as we say, the best way you can help us if you can't give financially is through liking, subbing, and sharing our content. So at least you can kind of prove to the algorithm that we actually are worthy of being pushed, because we're heavily suppressed. So, but thank you guys so much for being here and for loving us and for watching us every week and being so committed to us. We love you.
Yeah.
And we thank you.
Cool. Let's get to our first one.
All right. First story of the night. So as you all might know, governments have been in shutdown for now a week. And there's no end in sight in terms of when the government will reopen. The last shutdown we had, I believe, was back in 2018.
Right.
2019. Yeah, I think it was like 2018, 2019. Because I remember.
Luckily, they've already put up this banner so that you really know that it's shut down already. We throw up the Spirit Halloween banner on it, and everyone knows.
Wait,
it's out from you. Do you
what?
Spirit Halloween that are always on abandoned buildings? During Halloween.
Oh,
Spirit
sure. Halloween.
The Chad will get it. It's okay. Chad knows about it. It's fine. It's a meme.
So many federal workers are on furlough right now.
Right.
There's some who are essential who have to come in even though they're not going to get paid. So the deal is, and this was a law that was passed by Trump in his first term, that if the government is shut down from no fault of their own, then when the government reopens, you get back pay for the time that you were on furlough. Makes sense. But now Trump is saying certain federal workers, and we'll get into that in a minute, he's saying now that some federal workers should not receive back pay when the government is reopened. And shout out to Common Dreams. Don't read from them a lot. This is a new person.
Yep.
Stephen Praeger, who's first time reading articles from him. But he reports union fury after Trump suggests not all furloughed workers will receive shutdown pay. The livelihoods of the patriotic Americans serving their country in the federal government are not bargaining chips in the political game, said the president of the country's largest union of federal employees. So Stephen continues. The American labor movement erupted in outrage last Tuesday, at the time of this recording, after President Donald Trump appeared to go back on the government's promises to provide back pay to all the estimated 750,000 furloughed federal workers when the government shutdown ends. Last month, as a shutdown loomed, the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, an independent government agency that oversees the country's civil service, published guidance for federal agencies stating definitely that after the lapse in appropriations has ended, employees who were furloughed as a result of the lapse will receive retroactive pay for those furlough periods. This follows a federal law, the Government Employee Fair Treatment Act signed by Trump during the last shutdown in 2019, which requires that furloughed employees shall be paid for the period of the lapse in appropriations.
Right.
But the Trump administration has begun to walk back that promise. A memo from the White House Office of Management and Budget obtained by Axios on Tuesday stated that the administration's positions was that employees were not all entitled to back pay, and that the money would have to be specifically appropriated by Congress. Does this law cover all these furloughed employees automatically? The conventional
Nope.
wisdom is yes, it does. Our view is no, it doesn't, a senior White House official said, adding that despite what guidance other agencies may have given, OMB is in charge.
Yeah, the budget people.
Right. So here's Trump here at a press conference where he was asked about it.
Right.
And let's see what he says.
Is it the White House's position that furloughed workers should be paid for their back pay?
I would say it depends on who we're talking about. I can tell you this, the Democrats have put a lot of people in great risk and jeopardy, but it really depends on who you're talking about. But for the most part, we're going to take care of our people. There are some people that really don't deserve to be taken care of, and we'll take care of them in a different way.
Why do you say some federal workers should not get their back pay? Why do you say some?
Well, you're going to have to figure that out, okay? Ask the Democrats. It's almost like a kamikaze attack by them. You want to know the truth? This is like a kamikaze attack.
Y'all did that shit.
They almost, they have nothing to lose.
The law says
you have nothing. Y'all did that shit.
Reopens that workers will receive their back pay. So are you going to define the law there, or what do you?
I follow the law, and what the law says is correct, and I follow the law.
Have you identified programs to eliminate under this shutdown?
Oh, sure.
Which ones?
We have a lot. I'm not going to tell you, but we'll be announcing it pretty soon. But we have a lot of things that we're going to eliminate and permanently eliminate because of the shutdown, which I think they made a big mistake. We're able to take out billions and billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse, and they've handed it, on a silver platter. And Russell Vogt, he's a serious person, very serious person, and he's sitting there and he's getting ready to cut things.
How many permanent jobs are you talking about to be eliminated?
Well, I can tell you, I'll be able to tell you that in 4 or 5 days if this keeps going on. If this keeps going on, it'll be substantial, and a lot of those jobs will never come back. But you're going to have a lot closer to a balanced budget, actually.
Okay.
Right. You notice how he gave away the game. He basically was like, oh yeah, I want this to happen so that we can permanently axe out more federal offices a la Doge did earlier in the year. So he's not even pretending that he cares. He's just like, yeah, I want this to happen so that we can cut more people permanently from the federal government. So, but I mean, don't mess with people's checks, man, especially if again, we're coming up on the holiday season. So people are traveling, people are, getting stuff for their families or starting to prepare now for the holiday season now. And
he's been using this as a he's blaming it all on the Democrats, even though they did that shit,
Right.
I think he had something like where if you called certain federal hotlines or whatever, it would instruct you to, yell at the Democrats or whatever, that kind of shit. I don't know. I've also seen the only other people talking about this are NPR types who are Trump fearmongery and are going to take anything to yell at the guy about.
Right.
So it's hard for me to tell where usually it's somewhere in the middle between the two things, and usually it's Trump just playing the media for a week and then walking it back to 10% of what he talked about,
Right. But again, but the idea now is that now you can argue the Democrats are doing the right thing in terms of not it's basically a big game of chicken right now, but it sucks that like the American people are once again
in the middle of
pawns.
it. Right.
Yeah, and especially people like, especially in times like these where money is tight anyway. Like you're forcing federal workers to do, you know, like working at DoorDash or like selling shit or like having to take out loans in
Which
order
a lot of
to
them are already working multiple jobs, like, you know.
Right. But then especially for the ones who are essential, you have to work and not get paid. So, and I think the reason why the last shutdown ended was flights were fucked up because people were not coming in.
Right.
So, you know, so flights were affected. And actually, I need to think about that as I travel this weekend.
And also, this whole Doge, like, it reminds me, like, let's gut all the fucking government things that people actually use. Let's gut that shit. Put it all into the military because that's where our budget gets balanced. We all know, you know, and then act like later, well, what is the government doing for you? You know?
Right.
Like, the Democrats want government to run everything and be. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
You don't know shit.
And for people, you brought up something where I wanted to say too, like for people who are like, oh, these are federal workers, that doesn't affect me. Well, if you get federal services from the government, like SNAP, like any assistance that you get from the federal government, that affects you. So
Postal Service,
you know,
all that shit.
So this is going to have a trickle-down effect if this continues to go longer than it needs to.
Yep. I'm with you. So, you there?
Yeah, and I got it. Yeah, my thing cut out again. All right. But anyway, the American Federation of Government Employees, a union represented over 820,000 federal workers, argued that by denying back pay to furloughed employees, the Trump administration was contradicting both the law and its own assurances to employees. The frivolous argument that federal employees are not guaranteed back pay under the Government Employee Fair Treatment Act, it's an obvious misinterpretation of the law, said Everett Kelly, the AFGE's national president. It is also inconsistent with the Trump administration's own guidance from mere days ago, which clearly and correctly states that furloughed employees will receive retroactive pay for the time they were out of work as quickly as possible once the shutdown is over. Senator Patty Murray, the top Democrat on the Chamber's Appropriations Committee, said on social media that the White House memo was another baseless attempt to try and scare and intimidate workers by an administration run by crooks and cowards. Forward. The letter of the law is as plain as can be, Murray said. Federal workers, including furloughed workers, are entitled to back pay following a shutdown.
Go back one. There it goes.
Yeah. The National Federation of Federal Employees, which represents about 110,000 employees, also chimed in with outrage over the decision by House Speaker Mike Johnson to send members of Congress home last week as the shutdown negotiations stalled. Johnson has maintained that he will not negotiate on Democrats' demands to reverse cuts to a critical health insurance subsidy unless they agree to fund the government first. So let's see what this snake has to say. So go ahead and play the clip.
Yes, sir.
With regard to the whether the furloughed civilian employees of the federal government will receive back pay, it is true that in previous shutdowns, many or most of them have been paid for the time that they were furloughed. But there is new legal analysis. I don't know the details. I just saw a headline this morning. I'm not read in on it, and I haven't spoken to the White House about it. But there are some legal analysts who are saying that that may not be appropriate or necessary in terms of the law requiring that back pay be provided. So I'm sure that'll be there will be a lot of discussion about that. But there are legal analysts who think that that is not something that government should do. That, if that is true, that should turn up the urgency and the necessity of the Democrats doing the right thing here. Even more pain, more than I just listed, for more people.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't understand how these people still get paid, even in the midst of this.
Even if they didn't, they get enough fucking like backwater funding that it wouldn't matter, you know?
Sure.
Like,
but still, it's the idea of like, why should people suffer for doing their job over these idiots who
Right.
have really, for all intents and purposes, have no motivation or can claim to have no motivation in order to get their way? So, I mean, I would propose, and I've said this for years, that if the government shut down, they shouldn't get paid. Let's see how fast they're able to come to some kind of consensus when their money is on the line.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
So let's get back into it. On NBC's Meet the Press Sunday, Johnson has described the potential layoffs of thousands of workers as regrettable. Almost sounds like Charlie Kurtz, like with guns, like what did he say? He said it was like
unnecessary evil or whatever. Necessary evil shit.
No, he said it's shoot, what did he say? But it was just kind of almost dismissive.
Yeah.
Anyway, by adding that it was not a job that Vought relishes, but he's being required to do it by Chuck Schumer. On Thursday, however, Trump has described the shutdown as an unprecedented opportunity to carry out Vought's proposals for cuts to programs and employees across federal agencies.
Yeah.
The livelihoods of the patriotic Americans serving their country in the federal government are not bargaining chips in the political game, Kelly said. It's long past time for these attacks on federal employees to stop and for Congress to come together, resolve their differences, and end the shutdown. So I just, because you know what? It's one thing to listen to even journalists or even these idiots. I wanted to play a couple of TikToks of what people have to say regarding the shutdown, or just kind of giving more of the human perspective on it. So this is the first clip. So this is, I'm not sure where I got this from or who is speaking here, but basically how this shutdown is going to impact all of us in some way, shape, or form, whether or not you work, whether you or not you are a federal worker or not. So let's play this first TikTok.
So the government is shut down. What does that mean for you? Essentially, that any customer service level interaction that you need to have with the federal government will be impacted. And that's according to Matt Glassman, who is a senior fellow at the Government Affairs Institute at Georgetown University. Now, this is because a lot of government workers will be furloughed, meaning they will not be permitted to work. And some essential workers will still have to go to work, but they might not get paid until the government is funded again, which will cost taxpayers money. Now, you won't have to worry if you're traveling because airport workers and TSA are essential workers. However, if they protest and don't show up to work because they're not getting paid immediately, you could see some issues at the airports. Entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicaid.
So, as I said, that's what happened the last shutdown that made them reopen it because people were calling out. So, you know, you can't fly the planes or you can't open the airports when people are called out, like, safely. So that affected airlines being delayed or canceled. So that had a trickle effect. So that was one of the, probably one, if not many catalysts that were like, okay, we need to get going here. So keep that in mind, especially if you're traveling. Like, and as I said earlier, you know, be nice to the TSA agents. I know some of them can be dicks, but no one should have to not do their job and not get paid for it and not know when they're going to get paid.
Yeah.
So any federal worker that you come in contact with, give them extra grace. So
Which you should be doing for any service worker. I hate people that are fucking shitty service
you should
people.
be like, even if they're shit.
Yeah.
You should still be cordial
Like,
with them.
y'all don't know what their day's like.
Right.
And
they have to deal with people and mostly they're not even really the issue. It's just more or less the higher ups, really. So
yeah.
They're trying to pay their bills too. So yeah, just be nice to them or just give them extra grace and extra time, and try and make their job at least a little easier, especially now. But anyway, let's continue.
Medicare, those will continue to work throughout a government shutdown. But remember what Glassman said about customer service. If agencies like that furlough workers, you could see some customer service issues, and it could be harder to enroll in newer benefits. Now, national parks might be closed. They were in 2013. And while they stayed open during the 2018 and 2019 shutdowns, they were understaffed, and that led to, unfortunately, vandalism and, again, some issues with visitor services.
Yeah.
And other agencies will be impacted. During the last two shutdowns, agencies like the SEC and FTC had to put some investigations on pause, and the DOJ said that they had to pause 60,000 immigration hearings. And keep in mind that government workers don't only live in Washington, D.C. They live all over the country. So, a company that relies on the government as a client or, government contractors, they could be impacted too. Let's say, the security guard at the Smithsonian Aerospace Museum, that museum shuts down, she doesn't have a job. Or a construction worker who is doing a project on a government building. If the agency that hired him isn't funded, they can't pay, and he's got to put that project on pause. And the impact of this can trickle way down to small businesses. Like in 2019, baristas at Ascension Annex, which is a coffee shop right around the corner from the EPA in Dallas, said they rely on tips, and none of their regulars were coming in to buy coffee because they were furloughed. They weren't going to work. The good news is we talked to Maya McGinnis, who's the president of the Committee on a Responsible Federal Budget, and she said most people will not be impacted. If you're going on vacation to a national park, you might be disappointed, but generally Americans won't feel the impact. However, she said the longer this lasts, the worse it could get.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, give your federal workers, if you come in contact with them, grace, and especially contractors too, who are paid through the federal government. That's many of my friends. So again, the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be for many people, especially as everything's getting more expensive. Bill collectors are not going to care that you're on furlough.
Right. Yep.
So they're like, we want our money. So, so again, it's the idea of fucking over people and their livelihoods over bullshit, essentially. Yeah. Meanwhile, these guys get their salaries. They make sure of that. But anyway, here's a first second TikTok.
Playing.
Can't hear.
Can't hear?
No.
Here we go.
So apparently now Donald Trump is saying that federal workers who are not getting paid because of the shutdown will maybe not get their back pay, which federal workers getting back pay became a law after the last time the government shut down for 5 weeks. And that was under President Trump 1.0, his first term. This is all very deliberate. What he is wanting to do is to make people panic because people need to take care of their families. Things are already expensive. Now people aren't going to be getting paid. They're going to panic, and then he will be in a position, he and his administration will be in a position to lie and say, this is all the Democrats' fault. Be mad at them. Straight out of an authoritarian playbook. Create a financial crisis because you don't really care about people when you're an authoritarian, and then blame someone else, give them someone else to be angry about. So that's what's happening. I hope the best, truly, for anyone that's about to face really hard times because of this asshole in office. But I also hope that he does not care about you. He just wants you to be mad at the Democrats for his own political gain and for the party's own political gain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We got one more. What at least we'll try and end on the funny a little bit, a la boats. So
Right.
I think you'll like this one. So
Okay. I'm playing. Is this the same one?
no.
So apparently now Donald Trump is saying
Oh.
that
That one is. Hold on. I got it. You're doing the thing. I hope. Unless you put the wrong one in. Which you might have done.
All right.
so
Let me check.
17.
That's what I'm on. I have this. This is what I have on 17.
apparently now Donald Trump is saying that
Oh.
Same one as 16.
Hold on. Oh.
Unless I skipped one.
It is.
Yeah, if you want to like send it to me, I can just play it. If you have the TikTok or whatever. But
We'll do it at the end of the show. That might be a nice way to end.
Okay.
So,
cool.
yeah. So I'll give it to you through Discord if I get. Yeah, I have it somewhere, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, I kind of wanted to do this because I didn't see really anyone in our space kind of talking about this really, and I guess it makes sense because we're distracted by other
and
people
this
at the moment.
could be a distraction in and of itself. You know, we got a lot of shit going on foreign policy wise too.
Well,
but it's
right,
that's
but
like
I
it's
think
like
at the
constant shit with that now. You know, like it's not
Right.
even. It's just constantly the next thing is happening. So
Right.
you know,
But no, I think it's just, it's important, I think, to kind of talk about this too, because this is the stuff that will affect all of us, especially given if this goes on longer than it needs to be. I mean, like I said, it's already gone on for a week. So,
Right.
The longer it goes on, it's going to affect our neighbors who are going to need federal services in order to live, is going to affect a lot of your friends. And as one person said already, not all federal workers live in DC. They live around the country. So
Right.
this can very well be your neighbors who are struggling, the longer that it is. And depending on how much you've saved, or if you're like in a 2-income or multiple income family, people may not be able to live without. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck, even federal
already
workers.
right.
So it might be very hard for them to survive even like a week without getting paid. So imagine going for close to a month, if not more. And again, we're heading into the holiday season. Things are going to get cold. Food is going to get more expensive, especially over the holidays. Heat is going to probably be as expensive, if not more, than it has been over the past couple of years, especially if you live in the northern climate. And, so again, it's like pawns. We're being played for pawns on both sides. Now, granted, I can, for once, somewhat respect what the Democrats are doing, but at the same time, it's like, y'all are also part of the problem, too. So I can't really give you that much credit for doing the bare minimum. So, but at the same time, I also would be like, and I'm not seeing this from Democrats, is, Republicans and basically the main issue, or at least one of the main issues surrounding this, is healthcare in terms of the ACA being gone. Well, at least the subsidies being gone. And, and the reality is, if that is not funded, healthcare is going to go up by at as much as 75%. So,
Right.
and that's going to fucking affect everybody. So, and I think even Marjorie Taylor Greene basically had to wave the white flag on this because she realized, oh, my kids will be affected by it. So I'm not a fan of this shutdown. So so it's funny how it takes, as we say all the time, when it affects you personally, then you give a shit.
Right.
You know? So, but how about having that empathy even when it doesn't necessarily affect you, especially given that you are a leader or a representative of constituents that you serve? So, I don't know. But again, as I said, if you have neighbors who are federal workers, look out for them. You know, check in on them to make sure they're all right. Because it's going to be a hard time for them, especially if they have to keep going for this for however long until the government reopens. And then is a question, right? The fact that there's even a question whether they're going to get paid is totally ridiculous.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's just a mess. So
Yeah.
as I said, give your federal workers grace at this time, even if their work or their service sucks, you know why. Especially more so now.
Right.
So be nice to them.
Yeah.
And I don't know why for a story like that will be demonetized because I think this is kind of important, but we are. So if you want to support us financially, and again, don't give if you cannot, but if you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link and type it in that you see at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're in your YouTube chat and we're live, you can type in !donate, all one word, and a Ko-fi link will pop up, and you can donate as little as $1 there. You can also donate on Substack, PayPal, and Cash App if you prefer giving in those platforms, and those links to those methods are in the description below. And as we always say, we do this not for the love of money, but to spread truth to you all. That being said, if you want to help us, the free way is to like and subscribe, and please share this stream or the clips once we clip it out to fight the suppression, and make sure you leave a comment. Apparently, they say it helps with the algorithm push. So make a comment. So what do you think? Obviously, do you think that people deserve their back pay? You know, and how do you think the government is handling this issue? Do you know anyone who's a federal worker that might be affected by this, or you, in terms of federal services that you might receive or assistance? Like, how do you think this might affect your neighbors or yourself if this shutdown goes much longer than it needs to be? And help us get to free K. I think we're at 2,600 now, so that's just great. So we're probably on track to hit free K by the end of the year. And thank you for watching.
Yeah. Coolio. How's chat holding
While
up?
you do that, let me try and find that other TikTok. And then send it to you.
So, we had, who was it? Vicky Adams said their pay should be halted as well. Agreeing with you. Yep, public services. Kieran Pine says public services, FY, we're running an empire here. Pretty much. But yep, wild shit with that. So let me check the rumbles. See if anyone's over there. Where is it? Where is Rumble at? You live stream. There we go.
Here we go.
You found it. Go start. Gaza is celebrating. Meanwhile, the bombing intensifies. Massoud Abu Taha, 19 minutes. Israel is currently blowing up houses in Al Sabra neighborhood in Gaza City using explosive-laden vehicles. Local time is 4:15. Go start. Every single attempt to balance the budget led to recession. So, yeah. I'm with you, dude. Like, we've seen all this shit before. I don't know when people are going to figure out that Ayn Rand economics just ain't working for people. But, you know, tale as old as time.
Right.
But anyway, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Here, I got
you.
Discord. We open. No, go away. There we go. So, and then I can pull it up over here. Julio. Come on.
As I said, we had to end on the funny a little bit. So
cool. This one is
just
the one you wanted?
Yes.
Ooh. Here we go. 3, 2.
You have $244.27 worth of debt. Oh, you thought you was good. Now go ahead and cook that.
Had to put the ramen back, dude.
He probably was good with the 200 some odd dollars until he was like,
no,
in debt.
Fuck.
You're going to be eating ramen, my friend. So, God.
Yep.
I've been actually kind of fortunate that even at my
You didn't go ramen crazy?
No, I never had to, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a fat ass that I didn't care. Like, I would go into debt to eat. But,
Yeah.
but I never had to do that.
Who knows?
Or if anything, it would just be like pasta for me. Just straight pasta, straight
Right.
up. Like, I wouldn't even bother with the ramen. So
Ramyun. Got to get the Korean good shit. You got to find that out there. Find you some ramyun. But yeah, craziness. Who knows, dude? The amount of sodium intake, people are not going to be happy with that fucking ramen, dude. Holy shit. All right. Ready for our next one? I'm ready.
Yes, you.
You know, speaking of times are tough. You know, you could accept $7,000 from Israel to have good posts, I hear. You know, but that's not the only way they're influencing people. We'll get to that. But I found this. This is comes out of Responsible Statecraft. But they write Israel wants to train ChatGPT to be more pro-Israel because it wasn't already pro-Israel enough, you know. So I think you'll find it interesting how they plan on doing that. So here, the government of Israel has hired a new conservative-aligned firm, Clock Tower X LLC, to create media for Gen Z audiences in a contract worth $6 million. At least 80% of the content Clock Tower produces will be tailored to Gen Z audiences across platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, podcasts, and other relevant digital and broadcast outlets with a minimum goal of 50 million impressions per month. Clock Tower will even deploy websites and content to deliver GPT framing results on GPT conversations. In other words, Clock Tower will create new websites to influence how AI GPT models, such as ChatGPT, which are trained on vast amounts of data from every corner on the internet, frame topics and respond to them all on behalf of Israel. As part of this work, the firm will also use search engine optimization software Market Brew AI, a predictive AI platform that helps clients adapt to algorithms and promote their work on search engines like Google and Bing to improve the visibility and ranking of relevant narratives. Clock Tower will integrate its pro-Israel messaging into Salem Media Network Properties, a conservative Christian media group that boasts a vast radio network and produces high-profile shows such as The Hugh Hewitt Show, The Larry Elder Show, and The Right View with Laura Trump. In April, the conservative media network announced Donald Trump Jr. and Laura Trump as significant stakeholders in the company. Salem Media Network did not respond to a question clarifying whether it would be compensated by Clock Tower for promoting messages on behalf of Israel or how these messages would be integrated. Of course they wouldn't. Former Trump campaign manager Brad Perscale, the advisor who hired the controversial micro-targeting firm Cambridge Analytica during Trump's 2016 campaign, is at the center of the Israeli government's New Deal. Clock Tower is led by Perscale, who is also the new chief strategy officer for the Salem Media Group. It is contract. Clock Tower does not reveal much about what kinds of messaging will be promoted on behalf of Israel. According to its filing under the Foreign Agents Relations Act, Clock Tower was hired to help execute a nationwide campaign in the United States to combat, guess what, Colin? Anti-Semitism. Yay! The firm's point person is Aaron Shachevich, the chief of staff at Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. According to Shachevich's LinkedIn profile, he is leading a campaign called Project 545, which aims to amplify Israel's strategic communication and public diplomacy efforts. Clock Tower's work will be targeting a sector of the American populace that has broken sharply from its support for Israel. A July Gallup poll found that only 9% of Americans aged 18 to 34 support Israel's military action. Other polls show Israel's favorable falling more generally among the American public. Clock Tower will also complete an initial, crucial demographic and sentiment research report for Israel within 30 days. Another American firm, Stagwell Global, recently conducted a similar survey for the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. While the findings were far more favorable to Israel than other surveys, the poll, which was leaked to, guess who? Dropsite News, still found that 47% of Americans believe that Israel is committing genocide. Can we stop leaking shit to drop? Have y'all figured out Dropsite News yet, or is it just me? Y'all figured out that's rebranded Intercept? It's paid by the same people? Okay. Yeah, I'll wait till y'all catch up. In a meeting with pro-Israel influencers on Friday, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu explained that social media is the most important weapon Israel has at its disposal. We're going to have to use the tools of battle. Go ahead.
Which they suck at right now.
Yes. Yeah, they're not winning that battle. We're going to have to use the tools of battle. The weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. The most important ones are the social medias. So, yeah. Netanyahu even touted the purchase of TikTok as a group of investors is making a play to buy the company. Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, who is the single biggest private donor to the IDF, is poised to play a large role in the deal. I hope it goes through. Could be consequential, said Netanyahu. Especially when you've got Barry Weiss getting her new job, too. Clock Tower is conducting the work for Havas Media Network, an international media company that is working for the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs via the Israeli government advertising agency. Clock Tower is not the only American firm that Havas has subcontracted as part of its work. Earlier this month, Sludge reported that Havas had hired Democratic-aligned public relations firm SDK Knickerbocker on a $600,000 contract to run a bot farm for promoting pro-Israeli narratives on social media, which we covered, and they immediately tried to walk that back. So, but I'm trying to remember. Can you remember the name of the conservative group in that we talked about then? I don't think it's the same one as this Clock Tower one.
I don't think so, no.
But I can go look later. But SKDK's work into Justice Clock Towers is beginning. Clock Tower drafted a contract on August 27th, 2 days before SKDK deregistered its work for Israel. In a statement to Politico, a spokesperson for SKDK declined to explain why the firm ended its work for Israel, simply stating that the work had run its course. SKDK Havas, and an associate of Clock Tower, did not respond to requests for comments on this article. Thoughts so far, Care Bear, before I add on to this? Same. Yep.
Same.
Yep. It's just new shit to look out for. You know, I don't think people realize how much influence is being done on social media. I think they know, but like, I don't think they know, you know, like take what you thought it was and quadruple it, you know? So, you know, as my friend Oz would tell me, there's an ancient Russian proverb of don't trust nobody. All right. That's pretty much how this works, you know? So, but in other news, Dave DeCamp, antiwar.com, go bookmark that, writes Israel to spend up to $4.1 million on propaganda campaign targeting American Christians. The campaign will involve ads that spread a pro-Israel and anti-Palestinian message and sending a mobile October 7th experience to church parking lots. Yeah.
Wait.
I said that shit again.
A mobile
October 7th experience to church parking lots.
Well, I don't. What does that mean?
I will fucking explain that shit. All right.
What?
So this is why, like, how many people you heard talk about this? Nobody. That's why we do this shit. We tell you, and then 8 other fucking content creators 3 months from now, when they find out, will end up doing it. But you heard that shit here first. And you know what? Y'all better tell them. Y'all heard that shit here first. Anyway, the Israeli Foreign Ministry is planning to spend up to $4.1 million for propaganda campaign that will target American evangelical Christians. A project that's being sold as the largest Christian church geofencing campaign in U.S. history. The Jewish Telegraph Agency reported on a federal filing under the Foreign Agents Registration Act that shows the Israeli ministry has hired a newly formed U.S.-based firm, Show Faith by Works, LLC, which will target churchgoers with digital ads that are explicitly pro-Israel and anti-Palestinian. The campaign will also involve creating a mobile October 7th experience, quote unquote, that will visit Christian colleges, churches, and events. The document says the experience will involve a custom-built trailer designed by Hollywood experts, virtual reality headsets, set pieces, and full-length TVs for an interactive experience.
So wait, they're using virtual reality in order to plug people in of what happened on the October 7th?
Yeah, but they'll put yourself in the, you know, eyes of an Israeli victim. You know, whatever that shit means.
Except we've seen that online, given what the Palestinians have been through for the past 2 years. So they're 2 years too late.
They gotta make it up. They gotta fucking get the 3D modeling software out, you know, open up Maya, you know.
And I'm not even saying this, but the
It's
implication
fucking unreal.
is they're going to heavily Islamophobic.
Oh, for sure.
And as stereotypical as it can get.
Right.
Like,
yep.
So, but the idea of like Hamas as savages and all this kind of bullshit.
They'll give you a gun to use in the VR experience too, and you can shoot back at those savages. It'll be the perfect propagandizing fucking nonsense. Like, this is why I brought that shit, because like it's gonna show up in y'all's neighborhoods, you know. That little fucking van will be there, you know. So be ready for that shit. That's gonna be, I can't wait to see what that fucking bullshit's gonna be. So ugh. The filing lists hundreds of churches in California, Texas, Colorado, and Arizona that will be targeted by the information campaign. According to an invoice, Show Faith by Works expects to receive $3.25 million from the Israeli Foreign Ministry over a 5-month period and includes a potential additional $835,000 for equipment and expansion of the campaign. The document, which was filed on September 27th, says one of those activities of the campaign will be to combat low American evangelical Christian approval of the nation of Israel. One of the goals of the campaign is to use a combination of personal and professional outreach to the Christian community, combined with digital targeting and social media outreach to increase positive associations with the nation of Israel while linking the Palestinian population with extremist factions. So, standard shit from them, but...
Which, again, has not worked.
Yeah.
So, that hasn't worked. So, it's kind of like the very definition of insanity here. Like, this should be illegal, honestly. Like,
yeah. Like, imagine if Russia did that shit. Imagine if, like, any other country,
China
African country, right.
Right.
Yep. Exactly. The propaganda campaign targeting American Christians is part of Israel's PR blitz in response to its significant loss of support among Americans. Another recent FARA filing revealed that Israel is paying influencers around $7,000 per pro-Israel post on social media, which we mentioned at the top of this, you know?
Right.
So
it's funny though, like given what Van Jones said regarding like, oh, what we're seeing online in terms of Palestinians, it's nothing but like Iran and Qatar propaganda.
Yeah.
He hasn't said anything about this though, which funny enough, I actually heard on the way home that he's actually a part of a mentor group. I think as far as social media influencers who are connected with CNN and the New York Times to promote pro-Israel like Hasbara.
Yeah.
So obviously obviously we know Van is a bitch. So like obviously that's like on code for him. But yeah, it's like he had a problem with what he's seeing online, but he wouldn't have a problem with anything like this though.
No.
So sick and really so telling, like how low these people can go in order to promote. And for what? Just for a few extra dollars?
Well, it's more than just that for a lot of them. It's like notoriety and like being in the right rooms and, you know, it's playing the game, you know, they are a part of that. So, but I don't think I wanted to bring this because I don't think people realize like how much influence, like how much money, like this is just the shit we found. You know what I mean? This is the shit that have been filed and up front, you know, that we've looked at. There's probably other shit filed and up front that we haven't looked at, washed in 3 other LLCs. And, you know, like, I don't try, but like, look at what they're targeting. They're targeting TikTok. They're targeting your churches. They're targeting your community centers. They're targeting, like, I mean, this is classic PR campaign, you know, and they're paying millions of dollars for this. So, you know, like, I just don't think it's working. I think partially it is, but you know, who are they going to reach with that stuff these days? The people who don't know, mainly, you know, kids and shit, which is what they're also targeting.
If the Zionist lobby was able to lose Charlie Kirk allegedly, then yeah, I'm not sure how. I think this is just going to backfire, which in a way I kind of welcome, especially given the Christian church. Like, because it just kind of exposes the church for how low they have gone in terms of their uncritical stance of Israel. And I'm not saying like Christians in general. I'm saying like, and not even all churches, but like the church as an institution is what I'm talking about here. It's like, because Jesus was from there and all this stuff, that the nation in of itself as it currently is, which by the way is totally different from the Israel or the Palestine that Jesus and whoever in the Bible talked about. Like what we're talking about with Israel now is a modern invention by the UN, which Zionists essentially exploited.
Yep.
The idea of what, and even with that, and I'm just going to go off on a tangent, like, given my interpretation of the Bible, I don't think God ever meant it to be about land. I think it meant, and especially with the coming of Jesus, it was the idea of the people who are representative of God to be the light, not to have the land in order for you to, exploit people off of, but it was to use your faith to bring light to the world, not to do it in terms of having a little sliver of land that you exploited from other people who have been living there for generations. But
which is how it's been used about 99.9% of the time. Like your interpretation of it may be different, but the church's interpretation has been...
I just really hate how, like, Israel, especially within the church, has been used above reproach because essentially it's the place where Jesus was born. When it's
him even fucking existing is questionable. Like,
right. But even with that, like, you're giving praise or you're running cover for a country where if Jesus was born today, would have killed him.
Right.
So,
like, would have fucking droned him. You know? Just sad.
And I'm sure people
that's why,
in the
like,
church are not thinking of it in that way.
It's one of the reasons, like, I was going to church around the time, like, the Iraq and Iran war was happening. And it was like the same shit. And I just found it very, like, disgusting. So, yeah, silliness. But, like, be on your P's and Q's, everyone. Keep an eye out for the new influencers on your social medias. And I'm sure old influencers on social media. And, shame on you people thinking it's funny to sarcastically be like, I'll take the money, I'll sell out. We've seen that joke before, and it's not good. And y'all know who I'm talking about. Y'all seen it, and the ones who know might even be listening. Shame on you. Shame on you. All right? Not funny. But, like and subscribe, hit the share button. Very simple shit you could be doing. You make up for it. Leave a comment. Like, let me know what you think. Who else is going to be influenced by this shit? How terrifying is the October 7th VR experience going to be? It's going to be fucking wild. Hopefully Gal Gadot will not be starring in it. Hopefully. But, who knows, dude? But
who knows?
Anyway, thanks for watching. Weird. But I wonder what my, where demonetized slide is on that. That's weird. Got, deleted. I probably did it, too. I probably deleted it like a dummy. But anyway, let's check in with chat. How's chat holding up? But go start over on the Rumble. BB says ramen is developing nukes. So hopefully they can take care of that. Well, what do we got? Fred Edwards says Sonar 21. Anyone? Larry C. Johnson? Sure. Kill your Egregor's clock tower? What the fuck, dude? These names, man. Like, they really got a penchant for the the old nameology on that shit, dude. Like, it's like Palantir and all that shit. Like, let's find the most evil shit we could fucking put together. You know, let's make it sound spooky. You know?
Right.
So, but anyway. All right. You ready for the next one? I'm ready.
I am.
Cool. What you got?
All right. So this story, I think, has gone under the radar, but it kind of relates to my first segment. So a South Carolina Circuit judge's home burnt down. Now, we'll get more into the details later, but basically she didn't uphold Trump's thing of wanting to release data of citizens in South Carolina. She was against that and was very open about that. And now, just out of coincidence, her home burned down. Now, I think according to the report, no one was hurt. I think there were people in the home, not her, but I believe her husband was. But I think they were managed to able to jump out the window or something. So I think they have injuries, but I think generally they will be okay. But I find the story kind of interesting because I feel like we're kind of now. Again, I'm going to say alleged because I don't want to make accusations that could be wrong, but seemingly that this can be, you could say, enticed by the the Trump administration by a certain person. We're going to get more into that in a few, but in the meantime, I think I put in a video, I think, of the news report first. So let's watch that and we can get into the meat and potatoes of this whole story. And then you can make the opinion for yourselves.
Cool.
You can hear the thing burning.
Tonight, the cause of this massive blaze that destroyed the home of a South Carolina judge is under investigation. The house in Edisto Beach, an hour from Charleston, went up in flames on Saturday. Crews from several fire departments raced to get it under control.
We saw the black smoke and knew that was a house, but I didn't know if it was something that was spreading down here or further up or if it was isolated.
Fire officials say 3 people escaped through an elevated first-floor window.
That house sat inside a gated community here, and as you can see, it is surrounded by marshland. Those 3 people who escaped the fire had to be rescued by kayak and canoe.
One survivor was airlifted to a Charleston hospital. The home is owned by Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein and her husband, a former Democratic state senator. Judge Goodstein was recently involved in a high-profile ruling temporarily blocking South Carolina from turning over voter information to the Department of Justice. State investigators haven't said how the fire started, but late today released a statement saying, in part, at this time there is no evidence to indicate the fire was intentionally set. Still, earlier today, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham expressed concerns about political violence.
No matter what your beefs are, violence is an unacceptable response to political differences.
Fuck you.
So if it is arson, hope they find him and put him in jail.
Fuck
Tonight,
you.
a local official telling NBC News the state law enforcement division took over the fire investigation at the request of the homeowner. The agency says it will share more information when the investigation concludes. Aaron Gilchrist, NBC News, Edisto Beach, South Carolina.
We thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Can I just say that was a huge house?
Yeah, big fucking house, dude.
Let's talk about that first.
It was on stilts, I think, but also big house anyway.
Yeah, but just how much money you get as a circuit judge? But anyway,
you were a lawyer. You got fucking upgraded to judge. You get paid, dude. You get paid, dog. Your hubby's a senator. He's already got plenty of stock money. You know, like, you should be good. You made it, dog. You know, But
let's get into the article. So, unfortunately, time.
Yeah.
Don't think I think I might have used time at least one other time on this show, but I couldn't find this story really at all.
I know Descent and Bloom's got a article about it. If you want to go look at her stuff, I think she's got something on it. But otherwise,
but I think this is mainstream. I think the details generally is not going to be too far-fetched from what you'll get in independent media anyway. So
we'll see the bias when we see it if it's there.
Right.
You know,
I don't think so, given the content. Well, we'll see, but given the content of the story, I don't think it is. Written by Miranda J. Remtham.
Yep.
That's how you say her name. Sorry. Where she writes, investigation ongoing, in quotations, after House of South Carolina judge criticized by Biden. Why say Biden? Jesus. Trump administration burns down. I mean, it's...
Same.
I mean, same. Sure. Police are investigating a fire that burned down the home of South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein, who had reportedly received death threats for weeks relating to her work. At the time, there was no evidence to indicate that the fire was intentionally set. South Carolina Law Enforcement Division Chief Mark Cleo told Time in a statement on Monday, knowing that the investigation into the house fire on Edisto Beach is active and ongoing. I urge our citizens, elected officials, and members of the press to exercise good judgment and not share information that has not been verified, Cleo said. The fire began at around 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, sources told local news outlet FitS News, I guess. Goodstein was reportedly not at home at the time of the fire, but at least 3 members of her family, including her husband, former Democratic State Senator Arnold Goodstein, and her son, had been hospitalized with serious injuries. According to the St. Paul's Fire District, which responded to the scene, the occupants had to be rescued by a kayak. South Carolina Chief Justice John Kittredge told FitS News on Saturday that the fire appeared to have been caused by an explosion. Keel, however, said on Monday that SLED agents have preliminarily found there is no evidence to support a pre-fire explosion. Keel included no other details. The 69-year-old judge had received death threats in the weeks leading up to the fire, multiple sources told FitS News. Last month, Goodstein temporarily blocked the state's election commission from releasing its photo files to the Department of Justice, a decision that was openly criticized by Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Harmeet Dillon and later reversed by the state Supreme Court. The DOJ has sought the information, including names, addresses, driver's license numbers, and social security numbers, over 3 million registered voters as part of President Donald Trump's March executive order restricting non-citizens from registering to vote. Non-citizens are already not allowed to vote in federal and state elections.
Right.
The Trump administration has sought to drastically reshape the election system in the name of election integrity by requesting, and in some cases suing, states for voter registration data to compile a comprehensive centralized database. The administration has sought data from more than 30 states and has considered pursuing criminal investigations into state election officials. Critics have argued that the administration's efforts are an attempt at defranchising voters from marginalized communities and overstepping states' constitutional authority to control election procedures. The administration has also increasingly vilified the judiciary, blasting judges that rule against it as USA-hating insurrectionists. Okay. Hours before the fire at Goodstein's house, Trump Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller accused U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut of legal insurrection for granting a restraining order that blocks Trump's deployment of the Oregon National Guard in Portland. California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, said in the post from his office that Miller's accusation for ruling on the case isn't just reckless, it's authoritarian propaganda, plain and simple. Miller has previously accused Democrats of using incendiary language to mark people for political violence. Before Keel clarified that preliminary investigation has not revealed an intentional cause of the fire, some Democratic lawmakers pointed to the fact it comes weeks after Goodstein's high-profile ruling. Trump, Miller, and MAGA World have been doxing and threatening judges who rule against Trump, including Judge Goldstein. New York Rep. Daniel Goldman, who acted as the lead counsel in the first impeachment of Trump, posted on X. Today, someone committed arson on the judge's home, severely injuring her husband and son. Will Trump speak out against the extreme right that did this? In response, Miller called Goodman deeply warped and vile. Arizona Representative Yasmin Anarnsi posted on X, "We need a full investigation, but it's undeniable that this rhetoric is dangerous and it makes violence feel permissible," referring to a post by Miller suggesting that the far-left Democrat judges, prosecutors, and attorneys general have shielded left-wing terrorism. So, case in point, this was a tweet, well, a couple of tweets
Stephen
that
fucking Miller
posted nearly a week ago. So this tweet, the Democratic Party has filled our legal and judicial system with radicals who protect left-wing terrorists. This is a very real and dire crisis for our Republican form of government. The issue before is now very simple and clear. There is a large and growing movement of left-wing terrorism in this country. It is well organized and funded, and is shielded by far-left Democrat judges, prosecutors, and attorneys general. The only remedy is to use legitimate state power and to dismantle terrorism and terror networks.
God, doesn't that sound the most familiar we've ever fucking heard? Like, holy shit.
Terror. Terrorism. Terrorist. Terror organization. Terrorist attacks. Terrorism. Terrorist network. Terrorist attacks. Terrorist group. Terror.
I mean, I could let that keep going. It goes for like twice as long as that. So, like, first of all, we know that the fucking right-wingers have been like packing the courts up, down, and sideways for like years now. Like,
well, here's the thing that people forget. A lot of these circuit judges were sworn in by Democrats.
Right.
In collaboration with Republicans. People have forgotten that. Like, I think I've reported on this several times, maybe within the last couple of years, how Schumer and what's-his-face, Mitch McConnell, essentially made a deal to swear in a lot of these judges just so they're able to go on vacation. Essentially, that's what it was. Like, I know I reported on that at least a couple of years ago. So the idea that they're now saying, oh, this is definitely like a left-wing issue, that this is all Democrats, is totally bullshit, considering that Democrats basically allowed a lot of these circuit judges in to begin with, especially if they were more conservative, number one. But yeah, I said number one, but that was my only point. But yeah, it's just kind of like, and now you're kind of saying, oh, you know, it's these Democratic judges that are making our country go down the toilet and all this other stuff. And like, no, but then again, it's like people are not going to remember kind of what I said. So again, I'm not making any accusations, but it seems like, and this is what people are saying, that coincidence that this house burned down after this ruling could have possibly started by, and I don't want to say necessarily administration, but it doesn't have to be. It could be just one of these crazy, like, conservatives who, again, I'm going to say allegedly, and this is my opinion, that wanted to take matters into their own hands. So, possibly. So,
could be,
you know, but this is the world we're coming down.
Could be Democratic
you know,
false flag kind of thing, where it's like they're wanting to set this up to make right wingers look like violent and shitty as well. You know,
right?
Could be plenty of things.
And I do want to go back to Lindsey Graham for a second. How rich it was to say that political violence is unacceptable, but yet he will go against any war across overseas. So
right, it's only violence in his
like,
fucking neighborhood that he gives a fuck about. Like,
I don't think he even gave a crap about this.
Right.
I don't think I think he was just saying it just
in
to
general.
sound nice, given this happened in his state. But like,
Right.
I'm sure he didn't care.
No,
it was just the thing to say. Like, I'm sure if it were Trump, he would kind of lick his ass.
Yeah.
And he would probably like it. Wink, wink. But like, you know, but I shouldn't have said that, but whatever. But yeah, just kind of the hypocrisy on these people is just
wild.
But anyway, long digression.
Yeah.
In a power response to a post by a staffer for Newsom's office that said Dillon had publicly targeted Goldstein weeks before the fire, Dillon posted, "Threats against me are referred to the U.S. Marshals. There has been several tonight. We will tolerate no such threats by woke idiots. Govern yourselves accordingly. FAFO." The heated politicized response to the fire has become more common as political violence across the country has risen, sharpening the divide between the U.S. left and right. Last month, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was killed in an assassination that the Trump administration blamed on the left's rhetoric. Democratic Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives Melissa Hortman and her husband were murdered in June, while Democratic Pennsylvania Governor Judge Shapiro residence was targeted in an arson attack in April. And a number of judges who have ruled against Trump have received attacks and threats from his supporters. Chief Judge of the District of Rhode Island, Jack McConnell, told NPR in August that his court has received more than 400 threatening voicemails, including several credible death threats. McConnell has issued a ruling blocking Trump's freeze on federal aid early in the year. Judges told NPR that they received unsolicited anonymous pizza deliveries, a tactic known as pizza doxing that implies that the sender knows the judge's address. A White House spokesperson told NPR that attacks on public officials have no place in our society, noting the president's own experience with assassination attempts last year, which even that is kind of us.
Yeah.
I'm hearing everywhere that judges are worried about safety. There are people who are inflamed by incendiary comments of our president and members of Congress about judges. Public officials have legitimized attacks on judges with whom they disagree. Nancy Gertier, a former judge and current professor of practice at Harvard, told The Guardian in May. That month, Richard Durbin, top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, penned a letter to Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel requesting an investigation into pizza doxing incidents against at least a dozen judges. Fronts against judges are threats against constitutional government. Everyone should take this seriously. New York Judge Richard Sullivan, a Trump first-term appointee, told the Associated Press in March. Less than a year into his second presidential term, Trump has asserted an expansive view of his executive powers. As of October, Trump has issued over 300 orders, proclamations, and memoranda, many of which have resulted in thorny and protracted legal battles. Between May 1st and July 23rd, federal district courts blocked Trump's actions with temporary restraining orders on preliminary injunctions around 94% of the time, according to data analyzed by Adam Bonica, an associate professor of political science at Stanford, while the Supreme Court reversed those orders in close to 94% of its cases. Critics said that the sheer amount of litigation, some of which has been brought or appealed by the Trump administration, could overwhelm the judiciary. What President Trump has done, perhaps more than other presidents, has been not to only bring to task cases and force the courts to deal with these issues, but to do it in a shock and awe strategy which puts additional stress on the courts. Stephen Richmond, chair of the IBA Bar Issues Commission told podcast Global Insight, speaking in a personal capacity. Test cases are one thing, but as in any litigation involving parties and lawyers on both sides, the facts and positions taken must satisfy rules of professional ethics in terms of not being frivolous. Others have said that bigger threats come from Trump officials attacking judges that rule against the administration. Trump and his allies have also sought to portray the judiciary and their decisions as politicized and judicial overreach. Hours before the fire at Goodstein's house, Trump's Deputy Chief Staff Stephen Miller accused U.S. District Judge Corinne Murdoch of legal insurrection for granting a restraining order that blocks Trump's deployment of the Oregon National Guard in Portland. Wait, did we? I think I just repeated that, so never mind. We won't read that. Trump has called Pacific judges who have pushed back on his executive orders radical left lunatic and troublemaker and agitator. In May, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called the panel of judges that ruled against Trump's sweeping tariffs activist judges. God. In a post that month, Miller said, "We're living under a judicial tyranny." Miller posted on X in March, under the precedents now being established by radical rogue judges, a district court in Hawaii could enjoin troop movements in Iraq. Judges have no authority to administer the executive branch or to nullify the results of a national election. Another day, another judge unilaterally deciding policy for the whole country, this time to benefit foreign gang members. Republican Chuck Grassley, chairman of the Senate's Judiciary Committee, posted in March after a Washington judge temporarily barred Trump from carrying out mass deportations. If the Supreme Court or Congress doesn't fix, we're heading towards a constitutional crisis. In April, Pam Bondi called the swath of lawsuits filed against White House actions a constitutional crisis. President Trump's executive authority has been undermined since his first hours of his presidency by endless barrage of injunctions designed to halt his agenda, she said in June. House Speaker Mike Johnson asserted congressional authority over U.S. courts and appeared in March to threaten to disempower district courts if it came down to it. We do not have the authority over the federal courts, as you know. We can eliminate an entire district court, justice said. We have power of funding over the courts and all of these other things. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act. But the administration has also gone beyond vertically criticizing the courts. The Justice Department in Trump's second term has moved to prosecute several of his perceived enemies and judges that have pushed back on his political agenda. In April, Hannah Dugan, a Wisconsin judge, was arrested for allegedly aiding an undocumented immigrant to leave a courthouse. In July, the DOJ filed a misconduct complaint against James Boasberg, chief judge of the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., over alleged comments Boasberg made at a meeting of judges in March. In a social media post, Trump called for Boasberg, without naming him, to be impeached. This Trump, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. The administration has disregarded court orders, including plowing ahead with deporting 238 Venezuelans to an El Salvador prison in March after Boasberg blocked the deportations. A Washington Post examination of 165 lawsuits which judges ruled against the Trump administration found widespread noncompliance with America's legal system by the administration. The White House is accused of defying or frustrating court oversight in nearly 35% of those cases. Nonprofit media outlet Truthout reported in June that the Trump administration also appeared to have defiled a federal court order allowing transgender people to update gender markers on their passports. Lawyers are a regulated profession, Dana Gould of the Government Accountability Project in Washington, D.C. told Global Insight. The DOJ is inherently the bastion of where rules of professional conduct play a meta role because they're supposed to be serving justice. If the Department of Justice is willing to bend to basically break its own rules of professional conduct, it's a red line being crossed, she added. More than 150 ex-federal and state judges in May signed a petition letter to Bondi and Patel rebuking the administration's attacks on the judiciary, as critics have said that the Trump administration's rhetoric fuels broader threats against judges. What we need is our political leaders from the top down to stop fanning these flames, to stop using irresponsible rhetoric, to stop referring to judges as corrupt and biased and monsters that hate America. Esther Salas, a federal judge in New Jersey whose son was killed in 2020 by an attorney pretending to be delivering pizza, told NPR. So here's how I kind of take it. It seems that, to me, because Trump has said, like, I want to defeat my enemy. So anyone, including judges, that go against him, he's going to, I want to say this nicely, fight back. And as I said, I think just given the rhetoric, that not just from Trump alone, but someone from Steve Bannon as well, it's going to my guess is it's going to agitate the base to, as I said, take matters into their own hands. But even with Mike Judson saying, oh, we can essentially like defund courts,
right?
Which again, that's going to have an effect on a state and local level. It's becoming, they're essentially trying to make this country into a Wild West, but like in the worst possible way, so, but again, going back to this judge whose house burned down, for essentially opposing Trump, so we're kind of dangerous times now. So basically, it kind of goes back to my first segment where if Trump don't like you, and I think now he's more emboldened, that he's going to make it clear that he doesn't like you. And as the saying goes, shit can happen. So now, obviously, I'm not insinuating that the administration had something to do with her house. But, again, you guys can think what you want, but it does seem very suspicious to me that this judge who stood up against Trump for something that I think is correct, not releasing data on citizens, she suffered the consequences for having her home being burned down. So I think it's interesting at minimum to say in the least. So, but I think again, this just kind of shows what time we're in, that this administration is willing to retaliate against anybody that stands in its way. So it's not just the poor's. It's the people in power too, that this administration is against. But yeah, thought it was interesting. But kind of gone, I don't think mainstream media is reporting on this story at all. So I thought this was interesting to kind of talk about. But I think given the given the heinousness of this, I'm like, oh, this isn't good. We're as Missy says, we're fucked.
Yep. So. Pretty much. Well, as you probably figured out, talking about these kind of things are why we're demonetized. So you could scan that QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, or as always, links to donate are in the description below. And if you can't give monetarily, we totally get it. Times are rough right now. Like and subscribe, hit the share button, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Phew. We did it. How's chat holding up? Chat, you still there? You doing all right? You doing good, chat? Over on the Twitch, Max says, we are cooked. We are all cooked. Yep. Colin's computer making weird noises. No, the oligarchs in charge view us as useless eaters, says Kill Your Egregores. Yep. I agree. Kill Your Egregore says also they are calling for revolution. One can only hope, you know?
Mm-hmm.
One can only hope.
Right.
Anyway, over on the Rumbles, Ghostart says, published 3 minutes ago by Israel, it says that Gaza City is still combat zone and no one can return to it. Oh, yeah, dude, all those... I mean, we knew they'd keep whatever settlements they got, so... You know, like... And I don't buy that this peace deal is going to be... I mean, we'll see. I would love it to be at least somewhat over, you know? Like, if people could stop dying for a while, that'd be nice, you know? But speaking of, so yesterday was October 7th, which marks 2 years of the live stream genocide that Israel has committed. So I definitely wanted to make sure that we, you know, did some remembering of what happened then. But this is from Andy Worthington, who writes 2 years of Israel's genocide in Gaza, a sickening, unbridled enthusiasm for extermination that shames the world. So the world as we know it died 2 years ago today on October 7th, 2023, but not as we've been incessantly bludgeoned into believing, because Palestinian resistance fighters who broke out of the open-air prison of the Gaza Strip went on a killing spree in southern Israel in a desperate response to 75 years of persistent oppression, apartheid, and murder by the state of Israel. Those attacks, horrific as they were, with 1,195 people killed and 251 others taken hostage, although it should be noted that no one knows how many were killed by Israeli forces themselves under the notorious Hannibal Directive, were portrayed by Israel as a genocide and as an existential threat to their very existence by subhuman monsters, but that was clearly untrue. And I'll also add that, you know, they probably let that happen. They knew something was up. So, but in the long history of oppression and resistance since the blood-soaked founding of the State of Israel in 1948, when 15,000 Palestinians were killed and over 700,000 driven from their homes and permanently exiled, many, many times more Palestinians than Israelis have been killed in repeated one-sided wars on Gaza, euphemistically and unforgivably described by the Israeli authorities as, quote, mowing the lawn, or have been killed in random executions, often for nothing more than throwing stones at soldiers, while at any given time, at least 5,000 Palestinians, including children, have been held in brutal prisons, reserved solely for Palestinians, in which any kind of internationally recognized due process and justice have been deliberately erased. The blunt truth is that in response to the attacks on October 7th, it is Israel itself that has been engaged in a genocide, as recognized most recently by an authoritative UN Commission of Inquiry, posing a demonstrably real existential threat to the very existence of the Palestinians, executed with such grotesque and sustained sadistic violence that it is the Israelis themselves who have been revealed as the truly barbaric monsters. So, yeah. So we'll also kind of a good refresher course from Caitlin Johnstone. We'll let Tim Foley read her words.
Everything before and after October 7th explains why October 7th happened. Everything before October 7th explains why October 7th happened, and so does everything that's happened since. Look at what happened before October 7th, and you'll see year after year of murder, oppression, and abuse. Look at everything that's happened since October 7th, and you'll understand the kind of sadistic, psychopathic regime the Palestinians have been living under this entire time. Israel supporters don't want you looking at what happened before October 7th, and they don't want you looking at anything that's happened since. They just want you to pretend history began and ended with a bunch of Hitlerite savages attacking innocent Jews for no reason. And they don't even want you looking at the day of October 7th too closely either. Looking too closely at the events of that day bring up inconvenient questions about the Hannibal Directive and what percentage of the death toll was actually caused by the IDF firing on their own people. Inconvenient questions about the suspicious stock trading in the lead up to the attack, and the mountains upon mountains upon mountains of evidence that high-level Israeli officials allowed the attack to proceed undefended in order to advance the genocidal land grab we are seeing advanced now. They only want you looking at the parts of October 7th that make Israel look like an innocent little lamb who was attacked completely out of the blue and had no choice but to reluctantly respond with military force. Forget the scorched earth incineration of the Gaza Strip. Forget the bombed-out hospitals and methodically dismantled healthcare system. Forget the hundreds upon hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza who've been deliberately starved to death. Forget the fact that every relevant human rights institution on Earth has determined that Israel is committing genocide, and that 0 comparable humanitarian institutions have said it isn't. Forget the fact that human rights experts have been describing Gaza as a giant concentration camp or open-air prison for years prior to October 7th. Forget the fact that Israel had been routinely murdering Palestinian children and other civilians in the months prior to the Hamas attack. Don't look at any of that stuff. Just look at the stuff that makes Israel look like the victim. That's the story, anyway. Luckily, fewer and fewer people are buying into it. The longer this genocide goes on for, the more the world has come to view October 7th as Israel reaping what it had long been sowing.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yep. So, I mean, I remember covering what happened specifically 2 years ago. Me and y'all can go back, and then we covered how, people were asking it to be condemned. We talked about that, as did other people on our network, which got our network permanently demonetized. So That was 2 years ago. Now it's pretty much everyone kind of knows that what happened. So, Fiorella Isabel, 2 years since October 7th, video footage proved Israeli fired on its own citizens to blame Hamas, enacting the Hannibal Directive, which it used to build the now destroyed narrative that Hamas killed festival goers and beheaded babies, using this as an excuse for their genocide. So, she's again talking about how leaked footage from Israeli Air Force shows IDF Apache helicopters firing at its own citizens at Supernova Music Festival on October 7th. Right? Pilots realized that there was tremendous difficulty in distinguishing within the occupied outposts and settlements who was a terrorist and who was a soldier or a civilian. The rate of fire against the thousands of terrorists was tremendous at first, and only at a certain point did the pilots begin to slow down the attacks and carefully select the targets. Middle East Eye at Vanessa Beeley. So, yep, pretty accurate reporting there. Again, tomorrow is October 7th, which yesterday for us at time of recording.
That's it.
So it's a great time to remind you all that Israel killed most of the Jews during the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Right, and he reports this 28 fighter helicopters shot over the course of the day all of the ammunition in their bellies in renewed runs to rearm. We are talking about hundreds of 30-millimeter cannon mortars and Hellfire missiles. Right, so Sam Husseini Israeli falsely claimed Hamas slaughtered babies so it could actually slaughter babies. On October 18th, 2023, the Intifada, great thread. I'll try to remember to put the thread in the description below when we do the clips, which I will link in chat here in a moment. But this is literally Intifada put together all their coverage of it over the last 2 years, and people should definitely go check that out. I will open my speaker notes where the link is saved. Come on, here we go. But if I just copy link here, there we go. Yeah, that. Cool. And that goes in chat for people. Look at you. So great thread from them. People should go check that out. Another great thread that I will link in chat as well is from Zay Squirrel, who put together a lot of the testimonies from the hostages, right? And, you know, people that actually experienced it, right? An Israeli woman's testimony of what happened to her on October 7th. They come in and I tell them I have 2 children. They say, don't worry, we're Muslim. We will not hurt you. One of them sees bananas and asks if he can have one. I say, yes. They stayed about 2 hours, then left, right? Israeli reporter asked a woman released in the exchange why she turned around and shook the hand of the Hamas person. She said they treated us gently and they provided for all our needs. They prepared for it and had all the things women need. Then they immediately cut her off. Right? Again, another testimony from an Israeli girl and woman released in the exchange. He brought a towel because he is not allowed to touch me. A woman is a saint there. A woman is a queen. Right? So, again, that bit of propaganda fall flat for Israel yet again. So Zachary Foster, October 7th was not the deadliest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. First, it was not the deadliest. That would be the anti-Jewish Argentinian junta's mass murder of thousands of Jews in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The campaign was, wait for it, enabled by Israeli arms exports to Argentina, which constituted 30% of Israel's arms export during this period, making the anti-Semitic junta a key strategic ally of Israel. Second, it was not an attack on Jewish people. Jewish people weren't targeted on October 7th. Israel was targeted. In fact, Palestinian fighters, together with the Israeli military when instituted the Hannibal Directive, killed 149 non-Jews on October 7th. Everyone telling you they attacked the Jewish people is urinating on the graves of the Palestinian and other non-Jewish victims. Why Israeli slaves in the U.S. Congress feel the need to regurgitate lies, even when there are plenty of horrifying and truthful things that could be said about Hamas that day, goes to show just how enslaved our elected representatives and their masters in AIPAC, Kufi, and Tel Aviv. And again, you got to go out of your way to be like Hamas did horrible things even in your post. So,
right,
you know, like, you don't know that. Nobody knows that shit. To this day, it is still difficult to find reporting in U.S. mainstream media on Israel's intentional targeting of Israeli civilians on October 7th, 2023, when it implemented the Hannibal Directive, an excellent thread with receipts. Again, I've linked that in the chat, as well as the other thread from Zay Squirrel. This one, hold on. I go back. This one. Make sure I link that for people in chat. Cool. So there's that. And I thought it also reminded me, you know, they talked about, I've heard that, you know, don't call October 7th an attack when it's really a prison break, you know? Like, which was the mission initially, was to get people out of Israeli prisons. Right, as well as escaping the open air prison that they exist under. But I felt like this scene fits very well here. So it's from the Battle of Algiers, right? I don't know if you've seen that film. But it really shows the hypocrisy of imperialism. On many occasions, the FLN did not carry out bomb attacks against French settlers, but it was a fraction compared to the 1 million Algerians who died in the war, mostly civilians. So I'll let the scene speak for itself, but come on, go back, play the video. Thank you very much. So there it is. That's what I was looking for. Isn't it cowardly to use your women's baskets to carry bombs which have taken so many innocent lives? Isn't it even more cowardly to attack defensive villages with napalm bombs that kill many thousands of times more? Obviously, planes would make things easier for us. Give us your bombers, sir, and you can have our baskets. So I feel like it applies pretty one for one there, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and same thing with the Viet Cong and all that other stuff. It's what we've done thousands of times to indigenous groups of people, you know, and then we call them barbaric, you know? So, but.
Well, anyone for that color, for that matter.
Well, yeah. So this is from Mondo Weiss, and I found it very interesting, right? So they write, Remembering to Forget October 7th, which is an interesting title. You know?
Yeah.
So you'll realize why in a second. So 2 years on, the memory of October 7th returns as both catastrophe and possibility, reminding us that both resistance and surrender are choices haunted by loss. But 2 years on, we also learned something else. They are defeatable. This morning, the Israeli army entered Al-Baray in the heart of Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Not because it needed to, but because it had to. Shots fired, young men rounded up, herded into the school building called Al-Mugdarabin, the exiles. How language conspires with history. Exile gathers them even in naming. The reason the army was there had far less to do with security objectives than it did with the date. October 7th. Swollen with the repetition of massacres, but this time refusing to fall nearly into the ritual of the routine. The date compelled the army to act, not from strategy, but from the need to make us forget that day. And perhaps, ironically, they needed to remind us to erase it from memory. The morning's operation was meant to shock, but it ended up folding itself into the long archive of mornings already witnessed. Everything about it was ritualistic, the boots, the radios, the rifles tilted just so. It fails to shock precisely because it is constantly shocking. To mention October 7th before a fragilely assembled assembly of uniformed men, their bodies stiff with authority and fatigue, it is tempt their compulsion to humiliate, maim, and kill. The date itself becomes a trigger, the word too heavy for their weapons not to answer. The joke today is simple. If you are stopped at a checkpoint and the uniformed men ask for the date with that characteristic boredom that carries a silent threat, answer creatively. Give the date from the Islamic calendar. Offer the date from the Jewish calendar. Invent another year entirely. Anything but that day, you must expel it from your utterance. We have come to understand that neither resistance nor surrender will necessarily lead to salvation. All resistance offers is a chance that life might continue, even if only in fragments. Surrender, by contrast, erases what remains. This is the logic of a society so powerful that a single number can trigger its humiliation. They have the law, the armored vehicles, the patronage of imperial powers, and yet they are unable to muster the modesty to listen to a word. Their transgressions against our bodies, our lives, our future, they are all enacted precisely where language becomes forbidden, where a date can be treated as contraband. 2 years on, the date itself triggers violence and forces their compulsion. It has become a joke, one that reveals how darkness can unexpectedly twist into laughter. At first sight, the joke, don't say October 7th, give them any other date, appears as a tactic of survival, a small strategy of deception in the face of arbitrary violence. Yet, as with all jokes, the truth lies not in its surface, but in its structure. What does it mean to remember to forget? To discipline oneself never to utter the date, the effort to expel October 7th from speech makes it unforgettable. To forget it properly, you would have to stop guarding your tongue. You would have to stop constructing elaborate detours, Islamic calendar, Jewish calendar, invented numbers, but the fact that you cannot simply let it go proves that the date is lodged in the unconscious. Ironically, obscenely, the Israeli insistence makes forgetting impossible. Through every operation, every checkpoint, every ritual of domination, they become the guardians of the date. It is they who rehearse it endlessly, paradoxically ensuring its presence. We have also learned something, and this is perhaps the most important lesson. They are defeatable. They have destroyed Gaza, bulldozed its buildings, killed its possibility for life, and yet they cannot kill the date. Material devastation is absolute, and still the number persists. The more complete the destruction, the more spectral the date becomes, like a residue that resists extermination. And as we learn to forget, staging the rituals of contrition, we, those pressed beneath their boots, become unwilling archivists, custodians of what must not be spoken. In silence, memory calcifies. In avoidance, preservation, the refuse to utter October 7th becomes its most rigorous citation. I am not sure how historians will look back on this date, perhaps as the beginning of the spiral into monstrosity and the hyperforms of techno-fascism that feed on rubble and displaced flesh. Or perhaps as the first cracks in an imperial judgment and its outpost, the sign of the end of their imagined permanence. And perhaps as our end, our bodies scattered, dispersed, maimed beyond recognition, and maybe as something else, the endurance of the unbearable, the persistence of what was meant to be erased, the resurrection of a people who refused to vanish. I'm not sure. The uncertainty is itself the symptom of the interval. To be sure is to argue for inevitabilities, but here nothing is settled. The questions remain open, as does the genocide. The open wounds of Palestine do not close, they spiral. Thoughts, Care Bear?
Make it stop.
Agreed, dude.
Really, I mean, really, at this point, what else is there to say? But just make it stop. Like, we're tired. You know, we're tired of seeing the images and the videos on social media. We're tired of this country going to bat for a country that is not acting at all in good faith towards the Palestinians. Just stop so people can heal and rebuild if they choose to, you know, but I'm just kind of over it. Been over it, and then like the Zionist lobby is kind of doubling down on the idea of stuff is what it started on when it's not.
Right.
It's not. Stop it. Like, I don't know. Yeah, just
well, and to me, our one of our jobs now is to make sure that this aspect of things isn't forgotten, because it usually very quickly is. The last times these have happened in Palestine, people just conveniently forget and go on about their day. But y'all make sure people fucking remember, because, you know, that's when we're going to see the opportunities to act on this, is after they think you've forgotten. So, you know, unfortunately, we have to do everything fucking post hoc, you know? So, but just as a reminder, the U.S. spent over $31 billion aiding Israel in the past 2 years. The Cost of War Project at Brown University calculated that the total U.S. military support to Israel over the past 2 years has cost U.S. taxpayers over $30 billion. Israel has received over $21 billion in military aid from the U.S. and Washington, has bombed Iran and Yemen for Tel Aviv. President Trump also joined Tel Aviv's aggressive war against Iran and intercepted missiles targeting Israel. Overall, the U.S. has spent between $10 and $13 billion helping Israel wage wars across the Middle East over the past 2 years. The author of the Cost of War study, William Hartung, notes that it only calculates the weapons that have been delivered to Israel and does not include weapons that the U.S. has promised to deliver to Israel in the future. Last month, the White House approved a $6 billion arms sale to Israel that will be paid for with the U.S. military aid. Washington has promised to provide Israel with at least $3.8 billion in annual military assistance. After Israel started the onslaught in Gaza, the U.S. approved an additional $14 billion in military aid for Israel. So I don't think people have been upset enough, you know? Like, we are wholly complicit in everything, you know? So, but I'll end with this. This is from In Context over there with Mr. Medhurst, I do believe. But we'll let this video play us out. Here we go.
The genocide of the Palestinians is a mark of shame on the modern so-called moral order. This is not 2 years of history waiting to be buried. It is still bleeding. This is about what remains of Gaza and what the world must never forget. In Gaza, neighbourhoods lie flattened, streets unwalkable, shelters overcrowded. In Khan Yunis, entire blocks turned into ghosts. In northern Gaza, hospitals overwhelmed, electricity cut, water contaminated. Families huddle in tents that leak rain, living in the smell of their dead. There is no combat zone left, only civilians trapped, confined, crushed. Medical staff are not shields. They are the last line against extinction. Countless senior physicians have been killed or detained since October the 7th, 2023. A scale of loss that collapses any hope of functioning hospitals. Operating theatres darkened, ICU wards emptied, ambulances struck, corridors turned into morgues, field hospitals made of tents bombed. The silence after a blast is the cry of a world that failed. This is the deadliest war for journalists ever recorded. At least 232 journalists have been killed in Gaza, more than in the world wars, Vietnam, Yugoslavia, and Afghanistan combined in a shorter span. CPJ counts 178 journalists killed, 176 of them Palestinian. Other sources put the total above 270 media workers slain. On August 10th, Al Jazeera's Anas al-Sharif was killed. Colleagues say his reporting made him a target. At Nasser Medical Complex, a double-tap strike killed 5 journalists, among dozens of medical staff in the hospital itself. These deaths are not accidents. They were deliberate. They are messages. Look but do not speak. When the press dies, so does the witness. The flotilla remains a beacon. Ships of activists, medics, aid workers defying the siege. They sail towards Gaza, carrying water, medicine, cameras, and conviction. Each intercepted vessel forces the world to see the blockade, to confront the silence. Across capitals, youth march. Universities rally. Artists carve Gaza into murals. In every city, the slogan returns. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Not as provocation, as a statement of life, affirmation of rights, of resistance. Now the world debates installing Tony Blair as Gaza's post-war governor. To millions, Blair is not a peace broker. He is a war criminal. His legacy in Iraq haunts him. His record in the Middle East is stained by blood. Put simply, Palestinians do not need a British war criminal to govern them. Blair as overseer is not stabilization. It's neo-colonial theatre. It signals that even after mass slaughter, foreign hands still reach for control. Marking 2 years since October the 7th demands more than a memorial, but a provocation to conscience, a call to action, a renewal of resilience. Let those hospitals, those homes, those faces be demands. Why wasn't help allowed in? Why are killers unpunished? Why is Gaza treated as if human lives there do not matter? Every name of every doctor, of journalist, of every child must be spoken in every protest, in every hall of power. The wound of October the 7th is open. Silence now is not peace. Solidarity is a torch. Speak, resist, with whatever means you have. Opposing state criminalization of those calling out genocide is the battle of our time and a moral duty. For Gaza, for justice.
Well, that's all I got. Anything you wanted to add?
No. Just sad.
Really is, dude. And talking about it specifically is why our channel got demonetized. So if you would like to help us monetarily and help us continue to cover the most important issues of our time, feel free to scan that QR code on your screen or go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Links to help are always in the description below. But, you know, otherwise, just like and subscribe. Hit the share button, send this to your friends, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching. That's it. That's our show. We did it.
That's our show.
Cool.
And in 2 hours.
Yeah.
About a little over 2 hours.
Yeah. We managed. We did pretty well. Hey, you egregores, this is pure sadistic evil. Agreed, dude. With these hostages that have been released, it makes me wonder how their experience in captivity has shaped how they feel about Palestinians now that they were actually treated. Twitch, Mac91 over on the Twitch. Anything else we got in chat? Not too much. But we've all talked about this ad nauseum. Usually we're preaching to the choir anyway. So, but definitely figured it was important to put the pin in that date. You know? So.
Yeah.
But, yep. Anything else? I think that's about it. So.
That's it.
Cool. Well, Sunday night. How did we miss that? Boats. We'll be back at it again. I know Angel will be doing stuff over the weekend, so stay tuned. You can always follow at Get Any News for updates and the Substack. Links at our Linktree in the little doobly doo. Should be ways to find all that. Anything else? Am I missing anything? You know?
I don't think so. I think that's it. Jesse?
Don't know. I think he did that this week. So, but I know there's this stuff with people are planning for Aspen, you know, and Halo and them. So keep an eye out for that stuff. But otherwise, you know, do all the stuff you normally do. I don't know. Oh, remember, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.
Bye, have a great time.